This is my 1987 Porsche 911 Turbo. And unfortunately, it's under a car cover because it spends most of its time sitting here. And that's because I've got all these other projects going on that I just don't have the time right now to put into this vehicle. So let's pull this car cover off and have a closer look at this air-cooled Porsche. Sadly, the paint on this car isn't original, but the paint job that has been done is pretty decent. There's a couple nicks and scratches on this car. I actually prefer that over having a beautiful new painted car because then I don't have to worry about driving this car around. The Carrera 964 wheels on this car, obviously in my opinion, don't suit it very well, so I've plasti dipped them black to give it a more aggressive look. I'll be replacing those with something a little bit more fitting real soon. Before we talk about the other details of this car, I need to get it outside because if I start it in here, it's going to smoke this place out and that's not good for my health. This is where all the magic happens on air-cooled Porsches. It's a 3.3 liter horizontally opposed 6 with a single turbo that makes around 300-ish horsepower. Obviously, this one's been upgraded. The most glaring modification is this Andel Racing intercooler. It's upgraded from the stock one. Obviously, it allows for better flow and cooling capabilities. This car also runs an electromotive ignition and timing setup, which in my opinion doesn't work very well. The car isn't smooth, it doesn't always have the amount of boost that's needed, so I'm going to replace that as soon as possible. The turbo's also been upgraded on this car to a K27 turbocharger. It's not the best unit, the car still has a lot of lag, it has factory headers as well, which contributes a little bit to that. But we're going to be looking to upgrade all of that so we can actually try to see decent boost out of this car at low RPM. The previous owner of this car didn't pay much attention to detail when he installed a lot of these modifications, so they're done very poorly. Check out the boost control solenoid on this setup. It has a bunch of T connectors pushed into each other to make sure that they fit the allotted sized vacuum tube, which is just super janky. It's hanging here loose as well. It's just not good. One of the vacuum tubes leading to the blow-off valve has a T connector in it that unfortunately is just open to atmosphere, which causes a massive air leak. I've tried plugging it, but unfortunately that creates a rich mixture. The blow-off valve also has a bunch of rubber tubes that have been mated with plastic connectors that I just don't like at all. Aesthetically it doesn't look good, but even more so I'm sure it doesn't help operation of this car. Inside this car is classic Porsche. It's simple, clean design without crazy amenities and whatnot, and that's really what I love about it. One of the first modifications that I did to this car was replace the steering wheel. It had this atrocious Fast and Furious style Momo Apache steering wheel, which was just, could not be in this car. There was no way I was keeping it. So I replaced it with this Grip Royal wooden steering wheel. I think it's a pretty unique look for this car and still is a little bit classic and retro-esque. I've also added a AM failsafe gauge which shows lambda wideband readings and boost, and I think that's critical for a car like this because before having this installed I didn't know whether this car was running lean or rich. Now I know that it's running way too rich and that we definitely have to get it tuned. The seats are actually very supportive, which surprises me. You know, when you look at them you don't think much of them, but they've got great bolstering and they're comfortable for long rides. Time to go for a drive. So before we set off, you can see that this shifter, this Wevo shifter setup actually works very well for the most part. Like I said, much better than the stock shifter. The biggest issue we have is, see, that shift wasn't too bad, it didn't grind, but for the most part, once we get into higher RPM, you'll see that this thing grinds very easily. There's really no way around it, so the synchros are pretty much done. That's gonna have to be replaced. It's a job I definitely don't want to do because it's expensive, number one, and number two, you pretty much got to drop the engine and transmission set. Okay, we're getting onto the highway right now, and full throttle, lag. See, you can't even get into it. It puts a ton of boost, it doesn't go anywhere. Third gear is grinding right there. I don't like it very much, and that's the main reason why I want to fix this car, is to ensure that it has better drivability. I love the way it looks, I love the way it feels behind the wheel, but the usability of this car is just lacking, and that's what we're really going to need to figure out to get this car running where it needs to be. As you've probably guessed by now, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on this car. But I think it's going to be a really interesting project and a cool project, because there's not a lot of people that modify these vehicles to the extent that I want to. So hang in there. This car is going to unfortunately get tucked away for a little bit longer, but we're going to get to it, and it's going to be such a cool project. You'll definitely want to follow along.